Chart of the day today, small caps. The Russell under pressure. It's down more than 5% in a month. I want to chat about it. You have about 5%, Bill, small cap exposure. Should we be concerned about this space? Jim makes this passionate case that the economy is so good, and we know how strong it is. But the Russell doesn't want to believe it, apparently.
Yeah, I agree. We have a passive sleeve, about 15%. It's 5% of that is small caps. Now, I would think that if we're looking for outperformance somewhere, small caps coming into the middle of this year, say through June, was the place that we were going to get it. Now, they have underperformed in the last month. They're down more than 10%. And one of the reasons, the big headwinds here, if you look at the KRE, the Regional Banking Index, it's down 11% over the last month. As yields, the days that yields go higher, this regional banks get slammed. There's a lot of fear what they're holding on their balance sheet. There's fear of the consumer eroding and some low quality consumers and how that will affect the banks. So that's the biggest headwinds here for the small caps. If we can see a light at the end of the tunnel for regional banks, I think the small caps can easily outperform in the second half of the year, but it's going to be tough. Yeah, well, Steph, we were talking about this in the last day or two, whether it was here or closing bell, this idea you wouldn't touch the small cap banks, the regional banks, you said. And they, make up the largest part of the Russell 2000.
And that's why small caps have not done well, right, to Bill's point. So I don't think that they're going to see a recovery, Scott. I think that there are too many challenges for them. Capital raises for one, market share losses for two. And I just think that maybe even the dividends, which are now actually quite high, they may get cut as a result. So I just think that's an area I don't want to be in financials. I think the big guys are taking market share. We've talked about it. And I know we're going to talk about financials in a little bit.
Josh?
Yeah, it's a tough space. The banks definitely make it hard. But I just think small caps in general has always been an asset class where you just have to believe that good things have a way of happening to cheap assets. And so these stocks, as a group, the index itself, you look at the IWM, X-ray it, you're seeing like 13 times forward earnings, which is pretty reasonable. But one of the things that you're going to run up against is if we're higher for longer, then that makes it more difficult for smaller companies to finance, refinance, borrow money, establish credit, whatever they're going to do. It's going to cost them more now than it did 3 years ago, 5 years ago. These are just the facts. And unless you think there's some imminent reversal where we're cutting overnight rates and we're going to make a big dent in that, that's going to be a headwind for a lot of the companies, not just the banks, in the Russell 2000. You've got industrials in here, you got insurance companies, you've got healthcare company. It's a fairly diversified. The other thing is, it's pretty much an ex-tech index. Tech is not important in this index, and that's where a lot of the earnings growth is probably going to come from. Maybe not in the last quarter of this year, but the forward outlook: 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So, do you want to be ex-tech? You want to be overweight ex-tech. And so a lot of what goes on with small caps, to Bill's point, to Stephanie's point, it's not really about market cap size, it's industry. Which industries are in favor? And small caps are a tough place.
Unless, Jim, you say, well, valuations are so attractive now.
They've been, though, for a while.
Well, sure, for a reason, as you suggested. Does that turn? Some make the argument that it will.
It may, but I look at this somewhat differently. And I think Josh was alluding to this when he said pick industries. I pick stocks within the small cap index. And the reason I do that is because it's the most inefficient portion of the U.S. stock market. I can't tell anybody on this panel or, watching us something about Apple that the rest of the world doesn't know. I don't have some special information that my analysis got to. On the other hand, small cap stocks, which generally get overlooked and unloved, you can find out things that the rest of the world just doesn't.
What's your favorite Russell 2000? Give us your lock of the week. What do you got?
The lock of the week? I can't do it over a week. Okay, but over the next year?
The lock of the whatever.
MP Corp.
What's your lock?
MP Corp.
Open-ended lock.
I think it's MP Corp.
You guys are terrible.
Come on, what's your
MP Corp? It's a rare earth element mining.
UPG in that for me?
What's PG?
Personal guarantee?
What's the point spread on it?
Jeez.
What's the point spread on your lock of the week?
Wait, what's the stock? I'm sorry. I really want to know.
MP Corp. It's the rare earth element miner out in Mountain Pass, California.
Okay. All right. I think we're going to have to leave it there.
We're good.